what is the role of religious leaders in fighting for human rights for the community? All right, I need to give you some backdrop to that. And to help me do exactly that, let me take it to Heidi Jokos. Heidi, we are talking the situation around human rights. Just tell me what you have been covering today around that particular issue.
Yes, certainly, Tula. So we do know that the LGBTIQ+ community, especially the activists, have held a press conference this morning to discuss the latest killings. We do know that since the 12th of February this year, about 6 murders have taken place where those within this community have been found in very brutal conditions, some being found in a ditch, and the community is coming out to say that this is extremely concerning for them, given the fact that nothing much has been done and that communities, government and the police are not assisting with regards to this. So the community today and activists specifically spoke with regards to some of their demands. They are demanding that the president speak on this matter by latest Friday afternoon to condemn the latest killings that have been reported, the killings that they know of in the LGBTIQ community, as well as for funds to be made available for various committees and organizations in the country to assist with regards to this. Let's listen to some of the demands from the activists today.
We demand that by the end of this week, the President of South Africa unequivocally speak out, condemns and calls for an end to the violent attacks on the LGBTIQ+ community. Furthermore, the government of South Africa to urgently finalize and enact the Prevention and Combating of Hate Crime and Hate Speech Bill, which was first drafted in 2016 and was approved by Cabinet in 2018. Properly fund resources and restore the functionality of failing entities such as the National Task Teams and the Rapid Response Teams, as well as the Provincial Task Teams that were meant to address violence against LGBTIQ+ South Africans. To also create dedicated LGBTIQ+ desks in each province to address the needs of the LGBTIQ+ citizens. To ensure that sensitized and safe shelters are provided or are funded for LGBTIQ+ people who are in crisis in provinces.
So just to give you context, with live television, there are all these moving parts, and that's why you didn't have the context to that conversation with Heidi, which we'll continue with in just a moment. But let me give you the context of why we are talking, and that's because representatives of the LGBTQIA+ community are calling for urgent government action. That's in response to the surge in killings of members of those communities. There have been almost weekly reports on social media highlighting the brutal killings of people because of their sexual orientation. And that's why we are talking to Heidi Jokos, who's been following that particular story. Heidi, what is the role then of religious leaders in this context from the conversations that you've been listening to?
Yes, certainly, Tulas, and religious leaders have been called upon by the community to assist with regards to allowing people to make their own decisions. For example, what the community said today in the press conference was that it seems as though certain religious leaders go out and say that they have certain cures for those who decide to be gay or lesbian or whatever they choose their sexual orientation to be, and they then say that there's a certain cure for it, and then they see an uptick in the brutal killings. So what these activists are calling for is that religious leaders play their active role in dispelling some of these ideas and beliefs within the community, as it basically starts within the community. So the activists are saying that everybody needs to play their part in dispelling some of these beliefs. Let's listen to what the activists said with regards to this.
And religious leaders who stand on the pulpit and they preach God is love, but on the other hand, they preach hate towards LGBTI people and equate us and our lives as even worse than animals. That is unspeakable we cannot have leaders like that. We cannot have people who are listened to by thousands of people perpetuating hate and instilling these teachings and thinking to people who are actually looking up to them, right? And more than that, we have parents who sit in these churches who go back home and find out that their children are queer, and then they find themselves in a very difficult situation. They want to go to heaven, but then they love their children, and that's why we see a situation where.
And what is being said, Heidi, about the role of police in response to these killings?
So we know, according to what the activists said today in the press briefing, that the police have not been forthcoming with regards to dealing with these murders and killings that we have seen in the country over the last couple of weeks. What these activists have indicated in this press conference is that it seems as though police disregard killings when it comes to the LGBTIQ+ community, and that they rather push the matter to the side without actually dealing with this. The MPA has also been called on to act as quickly as possible with regards to these killings. And what's important to highlight here, Tulas, is the fact that the killings that we have seen being reported on social media over the last couple of weeks, these killings are the ones that have only been reported on. They are saying that there are more killings that have taken place, but people don't necessarily report on this because of the backlash, and they don't want to identify themselves necessarily as the LGBTIQ+ community, because they will fall victim to all these killings and they will be targeted. So it's quite a dire situation. This is why they have called on the president to act immediately. They've called on committees and organizations to come to the party, as well as communities, to educate those and say that whatever one's sexual orientation is, that should not be murdered and brutally murdered for that. But let's listen to another activist speaking on the police's response to these killings.
What we picked up is that people who they have, or services and SAPS has been difficult. We struggle with them, and how many times must we do these sensitization trainings? How many times must we provide these solutions and present them to government? To private sector. So we're not holding people accountable, and we're enough. We're enough, because there's so many other cases of murder that just go unnoticed, never reported, and people just don't even care. We're doing this now, but there's so many other families out there who still haven't healed, who are still going through the trauma of their children or their loved ones that were murdered many years ago. We've been talking about this. It's not new.
Thank you for that. ENCA's Heidi Jokos tracking that all-important conversation in an open and democratic society founded on human dignity, equality and freedom. Certainly issues that are being highlighted there, worth the attention of policymakers and those who implement policy, and all of society response and awareness about these issues being raised by the LGBTIQI community.